You're watching WCSD Cable Television from Calloway County High School.
To help the people of interested countries in meeting their need for trained men and women. To help promote a better understanding of Americans on the part of the people served. This is the mission of an organization called the Peace Corps. The Peace Corps looks to help people from all over the world in poverty-filled countries, which was founded on March 1st, 1961 in Washington, D.C. Today we're here with one of the Peace Corps' very own alumni, Mrs. Ann Thornton of Murray. Hello, I'm Robin Roberts, and you're watching Calloway Connections on WCSD Cable Television. Okay, so, Ms. Thornton, what are you doing now? And are you still working or involved in the Peace Corps and things like that?
Well, right now, after I came back from the Peace Corps, I changed from being a school teacher to a nurse, and then came from New York to Kentucky and worked at Murray Calloway County Hospital for 26 years, where I retired a few years ago. Right now, I am working as a faith community nurse out of First Christian Church in Murray and in the community. I'm also taking care of an elderly man in the county for his daughter who is in New Mexico.
Wow.
Right now I'm planning on going to the Gambia, which is in West Africa, and also with Nina Navidid, who actually is going to be a freshman here at Calloway next year, and we are going to teach for 3 weeks in a girls' school in the Gambia.
Wow, that must be really exciting. It sounds like a lot of fun. Okay, so Ms. Thornton, we have established that you're an alumni of the Peace Corps. So how did you become interested in joining?
Well, when I was a little kid, I always wanted to be a missionary to Africa, but I became a school teacher instead. And when I was teaching, I was single and carefree, and one of my friends said, "Why don't you join the Peace Corps?" And I said, "Well, that's a good idea." But I didn't know anything about the Peace Corps, so I went to the library because that was a long time ago, and there were no cell phones and no computers, and so I took the test in the post office, and they offered me a teaching position in Nigeria, Africa, which I accepted. That's amazing.
Okay, so while you were there, what were some of the things you were required to do?
Okay, well, I taught in a government teacher training college, which it was in Abraka in the south of Nigeria. In the bush, it was a government teacher training college just put there, and I taught men between the ages of 19 and 49 to get physical science in the primary schools. They only taught rural science. Well, my students said children could not learn this, so I went across to the primary school, and I taught 1 day a week, grade by grade, and we did simple things like I went to the market and bought dyes, and we mixed colors and made brushes out of twigs and painted, and then in my college, the boys, one unit, I taught them about the solar system, and we made all of the planets and so on, and told them how far away they were, but they didn't believe me. They said, "How do you know?" And so I was kind of dumbfounded, and I said, because, we were taught this, and but anyway, it was a lot of fun.
Were those college students, or those men, were they hard to teach? Were they nice? Were they?
Well, they did not forewarn us before we went. They were in the British school system, so they were very, very formal. So they wanted me to write everything out, and they wanted to memorize, and I wanted to give them questions so they could just figure things out, so they did get frustrated sometimes.
Yeah, wow.
And then at night they would come and they wanted to learn other things, so.
Wow. So when you went into the room, being formal-wise, I know.
Oh, before the students came into the room where I taught, I would have to leave. And then when I walked into the room, they would all stand up and say, "Good morning, madame," and then sit down.
Wow. Way more formal than here.
A little bit different from
Yes,
these
it
days,
is.
isn't it?
Yes. Okay. So when you were there in Nigeria, did you stay? Where did you stay? Did you stay in your own home?
Okay.
Were you living with someone? Or
I had my own home in on the college compound, and it was made of like cement blocks. We had mosquito nettings over our beds. I had a cook because it took a long time to make anything, because you had to wash the rice like 3 times, and you had
Yes.
to boil it 3 times, and so on. And also, while I was there, I noticed that the children had diseases, and so I went to Benin City, and didn't know anything about nursing then, but I went to Benin City where there was a doctor from England who had a nursing school, and I learned how to diagnose and treat malaria and pneumonia, and mainly the yaws, the big sores that the children had.
Yaws?
They're called yaws, yes. And so my church at home, I was in New York at that time, they sent me like money every month so that I could buy this, and I organized Girl Guides, which is the British component of Girl Scouts. And we treated the children every day at the primary school. And we treated them with, we cleaned them out with hydrogen peroxide and had antibiotic ointment, and they had their patches. And then for the children who did not go to school at all, they would come early in the morning to my house, and they would come in the evening to my house. And so and the students would come to my house in the evenings also.
Yeah, that sounds very nice. So when you were there, you said you had a cook. Did you know this cook? Was he like?
Oh, I called him Cook because I couldn't pronounce his name. and he cleaned up my house also. But I also made friends in the village. I had one very good friend. She was a village lady. Her name was, we called her Abiga. And I would go to her house. Now, their homes were made of mud. And I would go to her home and eat with her. But there they did not, I was unique there because, they didn't think anything of women, so I was way down below in the scale because they thought a lot of men. But education was way up here, so they really didn't know what to do with me most of the time. So when I first went to visit Abigail, we called her Abiga, in her hut, she would have me eat with her husband, and she would serve us. And then after a while, I'd have her come to my house. And after a while, she would feed him first, and I would come later, and I would eat alone. And then took several months before she would actually eat with me.
Wow, that's interesting. So with being there and having all your friends, did you ever feel like you were in an unsafe area or place?
No, I did not feel unsafe at all. Actually, the Nigerians, we have they have a bad reputation because the politicians were so corrupt. But the people were wonderful. They were happy.
Wow.
The children were laughing and smiling all the time. They were very friendly. The women were all very friendly. And actually, the men that I taught with, I was the only woman teaching in the college. They were all very friendly. And the children, you'd lose all your inhibitions because the children followed me wherever I went and would be at the windows. Although there were no windows in the house, it was just open space.
Yeah.
And they had like grating over so nobody could come in.
Yeah.
And we had mosquito nets over the bed because there were lots of mosquitoes and bugs and things like that.
So the town, I guess you were in.
It was a village.
The village you were
yes.
in, was it how many people do you think were estimated?
Oh, I have no idea.
Was it a lot? Or?
Lots and lots, yes, lots of people, lots of children.
Wow.
Yes, the roads were full of potholes. There were very, very few cars. Went on bicycle most of the time.
Wow.
And yes, I had a wonderful time in Nigeria. It was probably one of the best times of my life. They were very wonderful, and they were very friendly, and we had lots of fun.
Sounds like it. So
yes.
I'm guessing, do you miss being over there? Do you miss the people?
Oh, yes, I always missed Nigerians.
Yeah.
Yes, and I lost contact. The Biafra War was started while I was there, and so we were evacuated. We were evacuated a couple of months early, and Peace Corps has never been able to go back.
Oh.
But the we have an organization called Friends of Nigeria, and I belong to that organization, and we communicate quite often, and I have some really good friends. We had a 50th anniversary of Nigeria 20, of which I was in, at Washington, D.C., and I got reconnected with many of my friends there. And made a friend of Sandra, and we talk on the phone like every week, and she's been to visit me several times.
So your friends that you had in your Peace Corps, were they also in the same village you were in?
Oh,
or?
no. Actually, Sandra, who became my very good friend, I didn't really meet her until our reunion, although we were all in training together, but I was down in Abraka all by myself, and there was nobody else with me. But we did visit each other once in a while. I had other friends, Meredith and so on, but I really didn't know Sandra until after we came home. And also while I was there, I wanted to see the north, because the north of Nigeria was very different from the south. I was down in the rainforest, and the north was dry. And so, and this wasn't a few months just before we were evacuated, and I didn't know until after I came home that we were not supposed to travel. But I wanted to see the north, and I hitchhiked from Abraka up to Kano, which was like 400 or 500 miles during the war.
During this war?
During the war, and I realized now they were fighting around me, but I felt safe. I knew that I was safe. The Nigerians love Peace Corps. They called us Peace Corps because they knew that we traveled with them and we mixed with them, and I never felt unsafe in Nigeria. I always felt safe.
Wow.
Although maybe I shouldn't have, but I did.
You're very brave for doing that.
Well.
So you went there in that village alone. Did you ever get like lonely or something like that? Or did you gain friends fast, or?
No, there were always people around. They were always children and women, and then at night we'd play cards with some of the other men that I taught with. Actually, one of the men that I taught with was a village in his own, was a chief in his village, which was some ways away from there, and he wanted me to be his third wife. And I said, third wife. He had two wives. He wanted me to be his third wife. He said, oh, you need to be my third wife. You eat with Nigerians, and you mix with us. And I said, no, I could not share my husband. They called us Oyibo, which meant peeled one. He said, you Oyibo be too jealous.
Oh, wow.
And he sent his first wife to come and ask me too, because first wife has to approve of the other wives. And I said, sorry.
Wow.
Could not do that.
Wow. So if you had said yes and you wanted to marry him, would you be like?
Oh, I would. They said yes, I could be like their pet. I said, I have a car at home and son. Oh, he said, we would give you everything, and I could just be, chief wife there, and everybody would be waiting on me, and I would have had a life of leisure the rest of my life in the bush.
You'd be a queen.
Right.
So other than those stories of that and you hitchhiking, was there any other funny or interesting stories you have to tell?
Well, let me see. When I would go visit my friends in Benin City, I would have to take a taxi, which was, not like our taxis. They would be a small taxi, and everybody would pile in, and we'd go down the road, and if another car was coming, they'd want to play chicken, and everybody in the car would say, driver, make you put 1 foot for bush. They talk pidgin English. I mean, go off the side of the road and don't hit the man coming.
Oh my gosh.
It was very funny.
Was it hard to understand when they did pidgin English?
Yes, it was hard to understand. But where I was, in the Midwest in Nigeria, they spoke an entirely different language in every village. So they had to speak sort of the pidgin English to communicate with one another. Now in the East, which is Biafra now, they spoke Igbo. And then in the north, they're Yoruba. And they had their own language, but I didn't know any of the languages.
That's really complicated. I feel like I could not keep up with that.
Right.
So many different things. Did you learn the languages when you're in your village?
No, I had to learn the greeting, like do, and they would say Edo. For an elderly person, they would say migwa, which means I bow down to you. And sometimes the little ones, they would put their foreheads all the way down to the ground and say migwa.
Wow.
That was a greeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's very formal.
Yes,
So
very
sounds
formal.
like very formal. The school system, the people. It sounds very nice. So, are you keeping up with the Peace Corps now and what they're doing currently?
Yes, we have a Peace Corps organization that I get. Well, we used to have a Peace Corps magazine that came out, but now with the internet, I get it online.
Oh.
And then Friends of Nigeria, and a few of the friends that I still keep in track with, like Sandra and a few of the others in Chicago area.
Yeah. So, is there anything like that locally or around here? Something like that for
We
Peace Corps?
have an organization here in Murray of returned Peace Corps volunteers, and like the Tracys, they were in Turkey even before I was in Nigeria. Now, I was in Nigeria in 1966, 1967, so this was a long, long time ago.
Okay.
And we get together, maybe a couple of times a year.
What do you do?
We meet at the Apple and just have lunch and talk.
Okay.
see what
Yeah.
the others are doing.
Yeah.
Now, I think I forgot to mention that I was a school teacher, of course, and then when I came back, I became a nurse. I went back to school and became a nurse when I was 50, and then worked for 26 years at the hospital here, and I love nursing. I really love nursing.
You worked in the hospital here in Murray?
Here in Murray, yes.
Oh, how was that?
That was fun. That was
it
my
fun?
home. That was my home.
Wow.
Murray Hospital was my home, and now, and so it was wonderful. Now I'm looking forward to go to the Gambia and see how they're different from Nigeria.
Yeah.
It's much later, so I'm sure Africa is a lot different now.
Completely different, yeah. So what are you
Yes.
going to be doing when you're over there in the Gambia?
I'm going to be teaching in a girls' school. Yeah, Yasin and David, they went to Murray State here in Murray, and Yasin is from the Gambia, and she started a girls' school about 9 years ago, and brings volunteers from the States every year to help.
Okay. So I've done some research in the Peace Corps, and I've seen that there is currently 230,000 members in the Peace Corps. So I'm
Yes.
sure it's grown a lot since
Yes.
you were in it. And they have missions, like places that they go in over 60 countries. So for all the people out there in the audience, if you do want to keep up with the Peace Corps, you can go to they have a website called www.peacecorps.gov. You can go there. They have different headings where it shows you stories of how they have what have they done in different countries and how people have dealt with the Peace Corps. And they have a photo gallery of just all these different beautiful sceneries that they have done and just the groups of people that they have done and everything like that. And then there's a volunteering page, so you can volunteer if you want to get involved in the Peace Corps And so, well, Ms. Ann Thornton, I think that's good. So it's been a pleasure to have you here.
Well,
it's been amazing.
Thank you for having me, and
Yes.
anybody that wants to go in the Peace Corps, it will be the best time of your lives.
Yes, you have an amazing story. It's very inspirational for all the people out there. I'm sure they would love to do this. Okay, well, I'm Roman Roberts on Calloway Connections. Thank you for joining us.